Hey there friends, welcome back to another Legally Armed America video. I am Paul Glasgow, the original, one and only Truth Pimp, dealing you a vulgar display of logic and reason on a daily basis. Today we have a screwy story. This is not Second Amendment related, but this affects every single, at least red-blooded American out there. There's some weird stuff happening still with China. We expected it under the old administration because it was allowed. It's still happening.
Top headlines that we're following now on ABC News Live reports 2 Chinese nationals have been caught smuggling potential agro-terrorism fungus into the United States. According to the Department of Justice, the smugglers are Chinese nationals allegedly receiving Chinese government funding for their research. DOJ officials are saying that one of the defendants already admitted to smuggling the substance through the airport in Detroit. And according to the FBI, the fungus is known to cause what they call head blight in various crops, and it's responsible for billions of dollars in economic losses every year.
That's wild. It's more disturbing than it is wild, but that's wild. And I have so many comments, and I know you guys do too on this, so we're going to jump right into this. First of all, obviously they lied initially and said that they didn't know what it was or anything like that. Then they admitted to it. So they're charged with false statements. Visa fraud also. That may be because they gave fake names at first and then admitted to who they were. Now, to be clear, the Justice Department said the pair conspired to smuggle a fungus called Fusarium graminearum into the United States that causes head blight, a disease of wheat, barley, maize, and rice. Now, this is also something that can pass to humans and to livestock. The fungus itself is classified in scientific literature as a potential agro-terrorism weapon. This fungus causes billions of dollars in losses each year to crops and livestock. Its effects on humans are vomiting, liver damage, and reproductive defects in humans and livestock. Now, this is not the first time this has happened. They not only admitted to bringing this into the country before, so it's apparently already here, but they attempted to bring it in and were turned away in July of last year, almost a year ago under the Biden administration. Liu was turned away at the Detroit airport, that's one of the suspects here, and sent back to China after changing his story during an interrogation about red plant material discovered in his backpack. So apparently he lied about trying to bring this in before, and he was turned away. Not charged, not taken into custody. Hey, we don't like your agro-terrorism that you're trying to smuggle into our country. But since I have so much invested in China and China has so much invested in me, Joe Biden, we're just going to send you back. No more questioning, no more punishment, just go back home. Well, he came back to the United States. He initially claimed ignorance about the samples, but later said he was planning to use the material to research at a University of Michigan lab. Apparently he had clearance there. And where Jian worked, and where Liu had previously worked. Now, both of these people had previously conducted work on the fungus in China. Now, during the investigations, they found messages between the two in 2024 that suggested that Jian was already tending to the fungus at the campus lab before Liu was caught at the Detroit airport. Again, that's last year. More weirdness, the university doesn't have federal permits to handle this fungus. So it was done illegally if it was in fact done or taken care of or cultivated at the University of Michigan lab. Now I have to ask the question again, why was this allowed to happen under the Biden administration? Why were they just simply sent packing instead of brought in for some pretty intense questioning and obviously charged with something? You can't bring a banana back from Hawaii into mainland USA. And these people are smuggling a freaking fungus that can wipe out humans, livestock, and crops? And you're telling me that, no, we don't need any further questions from you or answers from you. We're sending you back to China. So what? They can plant it again like they did? And clearly they had already brought it into the country because they were working on it in this Michigan lab. It's not the first time we looked away when the Chinese Communist Party was trying to spy on American public and kill off American citizens and crops. Remember the illegal lab that was found in California? Remember that? This was also under the Biden administration in 2023. This was in Reedley, California a couple of years ago, 2022 actually. The CDC at the time had a very haphazard response which prompted the Select Committee to issue a subpoena and launch their own investigation because the CDC shrugged it off as, it's a nothing burger, right? After further investigations into this illegal lab that the Biden administration shrugged off, it was found that the biolab was run by PRC, People's Republic of China, citizen who is a wanted fugitive from Canada with a $330 million Canadian dollar judgment against him for stealing American intellectual property. The People's Republic of China citizen was a top official at the state-controlled company and had links to military-civil fusion entities. The illegal biolab received millions of dollars in unexplained payments from Chinese banks while running the illegal biolab. The illegal biolab contained thousands of samples of labeled, unlabeled, and encoded potential pathogens, including HIV, malaria, tuberculosis, and of course, their own COVID. The lab also contained a freezer-labeled Ebola, which contained unlabeled, sealed silver bags consistent with how the lab stored high-risk biological materials. Ebola is a select agent with a lethality rate between 25 to 90%, much higher lethal rate than little old COVID. It contained 1,000 transgenic mice genetically engineered to mimic the human immune system. Lab workers said that the mice were designed to, quote, catch and carry the COVID-19 virus. And local officials who discovered the lab sought help from CDC and others, and the CDC refused to test any of the samples under the Biden administration. Need more proof that the Democrats and the Biden administration are bought and paid for by the Communist Chinese Party? Remember the spy balloon that we did nothing about, right? This thing traversed across the entire United States, collecting data live as it flew through and transmitting it back to China. Went from the west coast to the east coast. Remember, they shot it offshore as it left America off the coast of South Carolina. Remember that? Now, Beijing claimed that it was simply a weather balloon, though an investigation by U.S. intelligence found the balloon was used for spying. Information captured by the spy balloon is not believed to have been successfully relayed to Beijing, although that has been debunked, at least to my knowledge it has, on a story I read a couple of months ago. So they were transmitting, again, live the whole time. I think whenever they say, they weren't transmitting live, that's their way of trying to make you feel good about something so that you don't panic about it, that China was capturing all. Look, whether Biden gave them a pinky swear that I won't shoot it down or what, doesn't matter. The Chinese government had to have assumed when they launched that balloon that surely America would shoot it down, probably as it crosses the west coast onto the continental U.S. So they thought all along that we were going to shoot it down. I know they never dreamed it was going to traverse across the entire continent and then all of a sudden we'd shoot it down once it got off into water. Look, there's a lot of population in the United States, but you cannot tell me that there's not somewhere that they could not have taken this thing down. They didn't take it down because they didn't want to take it down. They wanted to make sure China had the opportunity to do whatever they wanted to do. Because again, probably a pinky swear from the Biden administration. These people neglected the American public and allowed them to gather data across the entire country before taking the balloon out once it got over open waters. Of course, not much to capture there as far as information and data. Remember, they're not just taking pictures. They're collecting all kinds of data, electronic data. We have transmissions going constantly into the atmosphere, and they're collecting all of that. Now, they were certainly collecting along the way pictures too. Why does that matter? More on the Communist Chinese Party taking advantage of the United States, and more specifically, politicians. Democrat governor ripped as total disgrace after vetoing bill limiting Chinese land ownership near military bases. Governor Katie Hobbs, Democrat of Arizona, called the vetoed bill ineffective and said it would lead to arbitrary enforcement of land purchase restrictions. Really, all we were asking for you to do is not allow the Communist Chinese Party to buy land right up against a military installation in the United States. All those pictures that we took, you don't think they found some private, I'm talking about the spy balloon, you don't think they found some really nice prime private land that they could purchase right next to these military installations? Once again, here we go, turning our back to allow the Communist Chinese Party to do whatever they want on American soil. We literally have control over this. and we refuse to acknowledge the threat that is right under our nose, and likely that's well documented in our intelligence agencies. Now remember, when the Biden administration found these two Chinese nationals trying to smuggle this fungus into the country back in 2024, the Biden administration said it was no big deal. It can destroy crops. It can destroy your liver. So it will hurt people more than COVID did. It can do a lot more damage from a starvation standpoint than any virus, even if it didn't go to to humans or to livestock. If it just wiped out the crops in America, think what that would do worldwide regarding starvation. You don't think we'd have some kind of real disaster, not like the fake one that we had in 2020? Yeah, this would be a real disaster. We'd be, the same old story, right? We would be genetically creating food for us to eat instead of the stuff that we grow safely in the ground, somewhat safely, ignoring the chemicals that are put into our food as it grows. But you know what I'm saying. I would take anything out of the ground before anything that's created in a lab any day as far as safety and health. But the Biden administration, knowing that these people had already smuggled this fungus into the country before and were attempting to do it again, considered that smuggling attempt, quote, no big deal by the Biden administration. No big deal. Like the spy balloon? Is that similar? No big deal? I suppose, because that was treated as no big deal, if you remember. Like COVID? No big deal that China brought this in our country, or at least brought this to our doorstep, right? No big deal. Now, here's where I have trouble wrapping my head around this. We've got open borders. I mean, if these Chinese nationals were trying to smuggle, were they just lazy? If they were trying to smuggle something into the United States in 2024, clearly they had smuggled it before that because they were already working on the stuff in the Michigan lab. So during the Biden administration, it looks like there were at least 2 attempts, one successful, one unsuccessful, to smuggle this same fungus into the United States. Why'd they try bringing it in there like that? In other words, we had open borders. You say what you want. You can use whatever words you want. The borders were open. Again, for the Democrats and the lefties out there, you can call it whatever you want. But the actual function of the border was inept. The border security was non-existent during the Biden administration. Why would you try to fly into an international airport knowing you were going to have to pass through customs with obviously something illegal? Certainly should be a dangerous thing, considered dangerous. CDC didn't think so, neither did the Biden administration. Why would they attempt to do that? And I hate to use the term false flag, but I'm going to have to use it here because I think it's applicable. Was that an attempt, and this one too, like we just caught these people trying to do the same thing? Were the ones during the Biden administration and the ones now an attempt to, you know how you're playing hide and seek and the person might be getting close to you, so you throw something to try to make noise to get their attention over there, to distract them so they go over there instead of finding you where you are? Was that what this was? Did we know that we were bringing in all of this illegal stuff into the country? Again, it's already here in Michigan because these people say they worked on it there. Was that our way to have them get caught, knowing at the time, at least in 2024, nothing would happen to them? So there was really no skin in the game because all they're going to do is exactly what happened. Go back home again. Is that the distraction, to distract from the southern border, or even the northern border for that matter, but certainly the southern border that we knew was wide open? To distract them somewhere else to go, oh no, the real deadly stuff is coming in through the international airports. Nothing's happening on the southern border. And then now the same thing happens. So what is this a distraction of? Now maybe now that's the right way for them to try to bring something like this into the country because the southern border is closed now, or at least it's sealed off a lot more than what it was before. My worry is what came in before. I'm pretty confident in the Trump administration right now as far as securing our southern border and our northern border for that matter. But we were flying people into the country during the Biden administration, not just the southern border being wide open. We were airlifting people and bringing them from all other countries into the country with no vetting whatsoever. How much of that stuff, this fungus, did we allow in during the 4 years of the Biden administration and just look the other way? This is worrisome to me. There are too many things regarding the Communist Chinese Party that's happening before and happening now that they all work together with one another. The spying, the military bases, buying up the Chinese land right next to them, creating this fungus that will harm humans, livestock, and of course crops. All of this, to me, is reason for sounding an alarm. This has nothing to do with, sadly, the people of China, because I actually know people from China. There's a lot of very fine, good people from China. But the government is one of the most evil countries in the history of the world. That's why I'm very specific about not saying the Chinese people are the problem. The Communist Chinese Party is a problem. And look, they will sacrifice their own people in a freaking heartbeat like they did with COVID just to win their war. The Chinese Communist Party sees themselves as being in a perpetual war in every way. Not the way you look at a war. Two guys shooting at each other. That's not what I mean. The Chinese Communist Party doesn't see it like that. They see themselves as being in wars everywhere. Trade wars, environmental wars, right? Actual warfare. They see themselves at war with everybody all the time, and that's how the party, the Chinese government, approaches everything. They don't have any allies. If you people out there in these other countries think you're allies with China, you're not. China does not have any allies. They don't look at that as actually having allies. They have useful idiots that they use, but make no mistake, you are no ally of China.